Good to have you. Charles Aniagwu is a seasoned journalist and currently Commissioner for Information in Delta State. He's also a spokesman for the People's Democratic Party's candidate for the recent presidential election, Atiku Abubakar. He joins us now to share his thoughts on the threat posed by agitation for an interim government in Nigeria. Many thanks for joining us, Charles. Now, in the true nature of interim, very good. The true nature of interim government, any consideration of that is an illegality. So why is this coming at this moment in the just concluded, just after the elections, you think?
It's very clear that the APC have come with a lot of low in our democratic journey. Ranging from how a number of institutions have been corrupted and Nigerians tend not to have confidence in a number of the institutions. Unfortunately, the DSS, that's the Department of State Service, is one institution that we have had a whole lot of respect for, because in the course of time they have continued to assist us in churning out intelligence and helping other security agencies to deal with incidences of crime and criminalities. But these days, we are beginning to see the hand of political persons who have interest in politics and what the DSS does. You recall the other day, the DSS went to the extent of declaring the CBN governor wanted on account of what they call terrorism charges. And that was not substantiated. You also recall in the course of this APC administration, we saw monies that were stashed out in people's homes when they claimed that they were recovering funds that people stashed in their homes. We saw money, we never saw the owners, we never saw anybody prosecuted. And for you to be able to deal with crime and criminalities, intelligence is very, very vital. And once intelligence is corrupted, the operations obviously is not going to give you the best of either efficiency or effectiveness. And so when the DSS came up and said that they have it on what they call good authority, that there are plots to trigger an interim government, you begin to wonder why such an agency will begin to progress along the line of guesses. If there is anybody who had made effort to want to undermine our democratic journey, the best thing to do is not to engage in a beer parlor edition of intelligence, but to be able to say we have arrested Mr. A, Mr. B for engaging in action A or action B. You also recall also that our President Muhammadu Buhari, had even long before the election come about with the establishment and of course the institutionalization of the transition committee to be able to deal with how they can transfer power from his own administration to the incoming administration. As at that time, the election had not taken place, so you could not begin to say that he is doing it because of the APC or because of any other political party. And so how do you begin to talk about an interim government when the administration that is at the moment, the incumbent, is very much willing to leave office and hand over democratically to another government, even if we are contesting the outcome?
All right, Mr. Aniagwu, you'll permit us to go on a very brief break and just so that we can actually rectify the technical problem. When we come back, we'll pick it up from where we actually are dropping it right now. Don't go anywhere.
It's good to have you back. And of course, we've been speaking with Charles Aniagwu, who is a seasoned journalist and currently Commissioner for Information in Delta State. And of course, we've been discussing about the agitation for an interim government in certain circles. Charles, if you're still with us, let's pick up from where you left off regarding when we were talking about the illegality of the concept of interim government. And of course, there's been calls as well for the DSS to be more proactive and go a step further to invite the agitators for the interim government for questioning regarding their narrative regarding the elections.
Okay, thank you very much, Nii. Before that technical glitch, I was saying that the Department of State Service is one agency that is very, very relevant, not only for the purpose of the entrenchment of democracy and democratic principles, but for the purpose of having a country that functions effectively, specifically with respect to dealing with crime and criminalities. And you do know that, as very clearly stated in Section 14, subsection 2, paragraph B of the 1999 Constitution that security and the welfare of the people is the primary purpose of government. And so if security is very, very key, you do understand the pivotal role an agency that is saddled with the responsibility of dealing with intelligence could play in that circumstance. And so that is the more reason why we'll be calling on the DSS to indeed ensure that the integrity that that agency is known for is not thrown overboard, either due to some political consideration or infiltration by those who have their own personal interests different from the national interest. And so, for the DSS to be talking about an interim government is not something that should look like what they discuss in the beer parlor circles, what some jokers will call what the Igbo man says, just like a poker card. You just throw this one and then you win the other one. It should be something that is serious. If there is any attempt to talk about interim government, it is the existing government that could trigger what could look to an interim government. And the existing government today, that is the incumbent government, is very much willing from both body language, in terms of action and everything, to indeed exit on May 29 this year. And which is why they have been able to establish a transition committee for the purpose of transiting smoothly from the incumbent administration to the incoming administration. And so to that extent, the DSS will need to furnish Nigerians with relevant facts as to which quarters this interim government is coming from. But for us in the PDP, we believe that this is almost like what happened with respect to how the CBN governor was declared wanted because he made move to redesign the Naira notes. And at that time, those who won election now thought it was against their own interest. And they claimed that the CBN governor is reputed to be involved in terrorism financing, an issue and a claim that most Nigerians quite disputed. And till today, they have not been able to prove that particular issue. And so we are believing that this issue of interim government is a diversion. And they have achieved what they wanted to achieve by making us discuss now issues that are not relevant to the issues at hand. We are talking about an election where the Independent National Electoral Commission did not deliver as promised, did not indeed deliver the election in line with both the Electoral Act and in line with the guidelines set by the same electoral body. Now they have made us to leave that track. They have made Nigerians now to begin to discuss something that is a distraction. Because this claim by the DSS, we believe, is a distraction. And for us too, it is more like an ambush. So that Nigerians who are aggrieved cannot freely, as enshrined in our constitution, ventilate their grievances by peacefully calling for certain actions to be taken, by peacefully ventilating their grievances through some peaceful protest. And that is why they are making it look as if they can ambush the judiciary, claiming that the judiciary is going to be used. They can ambush those who may want to protest certain actions that are not in line with certain beliefs. And as such, once you strangulate the democratic space by making people not to have that ability to protest, by making the judiciary to be cowed, you would have ended up killing the whole essence of a democracy, which comes with freedom on all fronts. And so we call on the DSS to please maintain the integrity that that agency is known for, and not to take us on this wild goose chase of bringing up issues that does more or less tend to a distraction rather than the facts on ground.
All right, Mr. Charles. The 36 governors here in Nigeria under the aegis of the Nigeria's Governor Forum have actually written to the DSS, and they've told them that they should arrest and prosecute those rather than hitting up the polity. But this calls to question the use of government, because the DSS should be independent and whatever they do should actually be based on intelligence. But this calls to question the integrity of the DSS. You've mentioned that. But as we actually try to transit, what would be your admonition to the DSS at this moment in time on this particular issue if they cannot arrest and prosecute anyone like the aegis of governors under the Nigeria Governors Forum have actually requested from the DSS?
Well, to put it correctly, the DSS cannot be independent because, number one, it's an arm of government. You expect that those who are also in authority will have the privilege to direct some of the actions. But much as that is the case, where the rule of law applies, you expect that the DSS will indeed uphold the tenets of the law, which is why even when you are appointed as a director of that agency and those who have that responsibility of piloting the affairs of such critical agency, they swore to an oath to defend the Constitution and then to, as much as possible, also hold on to information that they think is not needed for public consumption, so long as holding that information is not going to be to the detriment of the country. And what we are saying is that the DSS, in discharging its responsibility, must not pander to the whims and caprices of those who are in the political circle, who want to achieve other aims that are not altruistic, other aims that are not patriotic, aims that tend to suggest that they want to oppress the rest of us. The DSS knows the importance of intelligence. And I must give it to them that for a very long time, the DSS has helped us in dealing with a number of issues, whether in terms of curbing crime and criminalities, in terms of curbing terrorism, in terms of dealing with all sorts of crimes, particularly financial crimes. And to that extent, I will urge those who are now saddled with the responsibility of determining the flow of action in the DSS to indeed remember the labors of those who were there before them. That this agency, which before now for a very long time was under the police, of course you remember the CID, the Criminal Investigation Department of the Police, before it was carved out to become the DSS today. We do know that time they don't wear uniforms. You will be playing draft in one corner with a CID man. You will not know that he's gathering information. And at the end of the day, they were able to deal with a whole lot of crimes. Unfortunately today, the DSS has become more like an elite agency, where the moment you see a DSS man, you will know him by his suit he's wearing. You will know him by his demeanor. He first of all advertise himself. If you want to gather intelligence, it is not all the time that you must advertise yourself. I recall when we were in school, and as a student union activist, in one of the instances at that time in Ogun State, one Sam Enwan, Wing Commander Sam Enwan, was the then military administrator in Ogun State. And we were not pleased as members of the student union with his administration. And we had a meeting at the level of the student union government and concluded that we were going to issue a statement. While the political class were commending him then for 100 days of blissful performance, we came with something that is different, that says 100 days of woeful performance. But you know what? Before I could even proceed to the press to issue that statement, I went to where I was going to type the statement. All my colleagues were rounded up and were taken to a place called Agowe, where they were now arrested for almost about 3 days. I happened to be the only person that was not arrested because I went out with the vehicle to print it. Why am I citing this instance? We did not even know that even from amongst us, including members of the student union, that you had members of this a particular agency having to monitor what people in the society are doing. We expect the DSS to do some retrospection and help our country for the purpose of finding out those who are committing crimes, those who want to commit crimes, those who are not plotting the good of the country, rather than joining hands to deceive Nigerians and divert attention from very, very relevant issues that we're discussing, which have to do with the changing of the goalposts in the course of conducting this election by the Independent National Electoral Commission. We do hope that the DSS will not become another low of the APC, because they have had another low in the last 8 years, a lot of lows in the last 8 years.
Very good, Charles. But if you remember, just before the elections, there were mutins about the possibility of interim government arrangement in some quarters in the country then. Don't you think this was self-serving? And that call mainly got traction after the elections, after there was so much outcry regarding the outcome of the polls in this regard. So I'd like your thoughts on that.
It was not even easy during the military junta of Ibrahim Babangida and Sani Abacha to be able to introduce the interim national government. That was even under a military rule. Not to talk of a democratic rule where you have a whole lot of processes. You could have consideration of a section of the Constitution for the purpose of extension of an administration. That is when the country is in a state of emergency, in which case a part of the country is at war. And then the president will now have to trigger that particular constitutional provision subject to the ratification of the National Assembly. That is not even an interim government. It means that the existing government of today will have to continue for a little while until such a time that the election could take place. But where we are today, the election have taken place. Even if that election falls short of the necessary threshold for any credible election, at least it has taken place. None of the political parties is asking that we should declare a state of emergency. None of the political parties that are aggrieved is saying that they should go and bring in military rule. What they are saying is that they have gone to the court to challenge the outcome of this election. They are taking the judicial process recognized by law. And so there is no window, not to talk of a door, where anybody can begin to talk about an interim national government or an interim government or whatever they want to call it. How do you want to appoint those to be part of that government when we have already done an election? Which part of the country will come together for the purpose of bringing that to be? The DSS, in coming up with this particular claim, didn't think very intelligently, even if it's an intelligent agency. They could have been able to say that there are people who want to cause crisis so that the handover becomes difficult. That one will look like truth, because they say the lies look very much like truth. You have to believe it. You could even say that, and even when you say that, it will not also be believable, because you are to say Mr. A, Mr. B has concluded these plans. They held this meeting in so place, and we have arrested them. We have interrogated them. These are the facts on ground. How can DSS be talking to us as if we are discussing in a beer parlor where somebody must have helped himself with some level of liquor, and as all this now begin to procrastinate? The DSS cannot fall within that particular very low. That is why we are calling on them to recognize that the section 14, like I quoted earlier of the Constitution, subsection 2, paragraph B, is very, very vital, which speaks to the issue of the security and the welfare of the people. And the DSS has a very, very, very important role to play in terms of the security of the people. And I've mentioned that quite earlier. And that is why they cannot afford to gamble with the kind of intelligence they give out. They cannot afford to take Nigerians on these wild goose chase, where they have succeeded now in taking us away from the issues of the moment, because that was what they want to do. They want both the media, those of us who are in the political class, and then a number of other Nigerians to begin to chase a goose that does not even exist. And this is not good enough for us as a country. The DSS should make sure that they retain and maintain the integrity that that agency is known for. The DSS need to assist other security agencies that they have known in the past to ensure that the intelligence that is made available to them is intelligence that is verifiable, is intelligence that will be able to help our country, is intelligence that will be able to sustain our democracy and our democratic journey, albeit the need for us to have development that is all-inclusive. And that is why I agree with you that the DSS should indeed give intelligence that is intelligent enough for us to believe. This particular one falls short of any noticeable or known threshold of intelligence as to what Nigerians will believe with respect to this their particular caution. They don't need to caution us. Once you see a snake, don't set up a committee to kill a snake. Kill that snake, because by the time you are setting up a committee, the snake would have succeeded in biting everybody. What the DSS is doing amounts to setting up a committee to kill a snake that is very much willing to bite everybody. And when that happens, the venom would have taken charge of all the blood vessel in the human being, and you know what that will lead to. And we pray that they don't progress along that line, because that will amount to progressing in error.
All right, okay, let's talk about the PDP and all that has been going on. Of course, in the last 24 hours or so, the PDP has actually, now the PDP has reversed the suspension of former Senate President Pius Ayin Pius, and also Ayo Fire. So what do you make of that, and has it been received within the ranks of the PDP?
Well, I had an interview with a sister station where I also addressed a number of the issues with respect to the suspension of some members of the party. For me, I felt that that was being too hasty, but I'm happy that the new acting chairman and members of the National Working Committee have been able to take a second look at that issue. We should be able to have the opportunity of addressing a number of issues. That does not mean that the party is weak. We do agree that a number of party faithful have progressed in error by working against the interest of the party, by being very, very selfish in their approach to issues with respect to this election. But much as that is the case, we are still in the bush, so we cannot begin to pick up the debris on our head. Because the moment you pick up one, the another one is likely to still fall on your head. So you need to first of all leave this trouble zone that we are in. We have contested an election that we believe we won. We have proceeded to the tribunal. And so we have gotten so much on our plate at the moment, we can't begin to look for stones and gravels to put in that stone that will make the beans not edible. And so it is very important that we decide as much as possible and decisively to separate the chaff from the grain. It is true, in the course of time, we need to examine the conduct of some members of our party. But at this moment, there are bigger issues that we need to deal with. I've said before in one of my interviews with you that if you are passing a farm road and you come across a log of wood on top of another, for you to proceed in the course of that your journey, you need to first of all approach the one that is on top. Remove it before you get to the one below. If you begin to try to remove the one below, it will become too difficult because the one on top will impress its own weight on the one below. So the one that is on top now is for us to prosecute this election result and in court and prove that indeed that we won that election, but we were denied by the antics of the Independent National Electoral Commission in cahoot with the APC. And that is the most important thing. Then as we progress, we can now begin to examine a number of other issues that have arisen in the course of time. The PDP, it's in the interest of Nigeria that the PDP survive. It's in the interest of Nigeria that the PDP, being the good old party, remain in existence and play a very, very critical role in our democratic journey, both at the level of governance or at the level of opposition. But for those who may begin to wonder, say, let the party go, that is not how democracy grows. You need to go to Germany, you need to go to Canada, you need to go to US, you need to go to Great Britain. These are old democracies. They don't just move from party to party. Rather, they go about a number of reforms. Of course, you can see what's happening in the United States today. Even with the nature of Trump, the members of the Republicans are still taking steps to ensure that their party holds sway and not just to want to kill the party because of an individual. The individuals will come and go, but let the party survive so that the democratic principles and having that issue of institutional memory will stay for a longer time, and that way we'll begin to understand what it is to have a government that works, have a democracy that works, and then move away from the issue of wanting to kill somebody because you are seeking power.
Indeed, interesting perspective there. Charles Aniagwu, Delta State Commissioner for Information, thank you for your time.